I'm sat in front of a Christmas tree and the Christmas jumper is on. You know that means only one thing. It's time for the annual Chronik Spartan Christmas stealth game review. And this year we'll be looking at 007 Tomorrow Never Dies on the PlayStation 1. The story of Tomorrow Never Dies goes back to 1999 when I was out with my dad looking at universities, looking for what my potential future would look like. And I remember it was around about late November time. It was cold, we were going to Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, and we were walking around at a wintry time looking for my future. But there was only one thing that was really on my mind that I couldn't stop thinking about. And that was Tomorrow Never Dies, the 007 Bond game. You see, back then, I only had a PlayStation 1, I didn't have an N64, GoldenEye was the only thing everyone talked about, and being such a huge 007 fan, I really wanted to either play GoldenEye on the N64, which I couldn't, or have my own version of that type of game on the PlayStation 1. Up until that point, there weren't really any James Bond games on the PlayStation 1, and there weren't that many stealth games that kind of satisfied that itch. Metal Gear Solid, absolutely fantastic game, my favourite game of all time, and although it has strong James Bond aspects to it, it doesn't quite have that cheesiness that James Bond has. So when I heard about 007 Tomorrow Never Dies, I was absolutely ecstatic. Now the thing was, it wasn't a first-person shooter like GoldenEye, it was a third-person shooter, and I think at that time especially, games like that kind of fit better with first-person shooters. I think they just felt a bit more modern. And at the time as well, pretty much everything I read about it, all reviews and anything I heard people saying about it, was that it was just not a great game. It didn't live up to GoldenEye and it was a missed opportunity. So I kind of still listened to reviews at that point in time, and I decided to not get it. I decided to not ask for it for Christmas. But I did rent it and I played it and I actually really enjoyed it. Even though I felt like I shouldn't, because like I said, at those times I was younger, I was kind of maybe a bit more believable, I believed more in reviews and trusted them more, and I felt like, no, this isn't really a good game and I guess I shouldn't be enjoying it, but I did. Nevertheless, after a week I gave it back, I was only renting it, and then my life progressed. I went on to uni, etc. But then it was about 20 years later and I got myself my first retro emulation handheld system. You know, the type of stuff I talk about on this channel all the time. And it was the RG351P. And this was a portable PlayStation 1 emulator I could have in my hands. And this was an opportunity for me to go back and relive a lot of those games, or play games I never got round to back in the PlayStation 1 generation. One of those games was 007 Tomorrow Never Dies. And it was during the month of December I decided to fire it up. You guys know, you're watching this episode because you know I love playing stealth games and spy games around about Christmas time. And in 2019, December 2019, I decided to finally give Tomorrow Never Dies a true chance. And I absolutely loved every single second of it. Were the controls terrible? Yes, they were. They were tank controls and they still are. They're really awkward to use. Could I call it technically an amazing game? I couldn't. But did I love every single second of it? I did. And I loved it because it gave me those things that give me that familiarity with cheesy spy games that I love so much. It starts off with snowy levels. You're James Bond in a snowy level, and I couldn't ask for any spy game to start any better than that. The third person aspect, although in 1999 felt like it wasn't the right type of game style for the game it was, I really enjoyed it this time round, and it was nice to play a much more nostalgic feeling type of game. The levels are all laid out in a very simple fashion by which you can see what levels are coming up next. You can see how many levels you've got before you complete the game, which for me, I really appreciate at a time, especially when I don't have that much time to complete full video games. It's good to see what's left in front of me. Hallmarks of a cheesy movie game tie-in. It was just amazing, and it just brought back so much of that nostalgia and those memories. And it took me back to the time walking around those universities looking to see which ones I wanted to go to in that November of 1999, where all I could think about was playing this game and visualizing that opening level of James Bond in the snowy level, taking out the bad guys, able to enjoy it now in the comfort of my home, in the palm of my hands, and reliving those memories exactly like I wanted to 20 years ago. 007 Tomorrow Never Dies like I said, it's technically not a great game. It's a very cheesy game. It's a movie game tie-in. It's not for everybody. It is for me, but it's not for everybody. But I have to give credit where credit's due with Tomorrow Never Dies and how it created the scene and set the template for the next 10 years of James Bond games. The World Is Not Enough, Agent Under Fire, Nightfire, although yes, we're first-person shooter games before Everything or Nothing returned us back to the third-person shooter aspect, they copied a lot of the things that Tomorrow Never Dies set in place. Things like not keeping the action focus purely on shooting, but introducing things like skiing level and the driving sections which we're so familiar with in Agent Under Fire and Nightfire. Tomorrow Never Dies did take a lot of criticism back in the day when it first released, and to this day it's not the type of game that is for a lot of people. It still is that cheesy movie game tie-in. It still does have tank controls. It has issues that even I can't excuse. But beyond all that, the charm, the enjoyment, the childhood joy that I get playing Tomorrow Never Dies outshines all of that. And that is exactly what playing a Christmas stealth game for me is all about. It's about not worrying. It's about forgetting all the little technical nitty-gritty details and just being able to dive in and enjoy something for the pure enjoyment of it. And Tomorrow Never Dies lived up to that expectation for me 20 years later. And that's why 007 Tomorrow Never Dies on the PlayStation 1 is my 2024 Christmas stealth game review. I hope you and your family have an amazing holiday season, and I wish you all the best. Merry Christmas.